Hey, welcome, welcome. We're going to do a little bit of deep thinking. We're going to unpack something which rarely gets unpacked in recruitment. I would bet probably thousands of pounds, if I had them in my pocket right now, that what I'm going to share with you has never been shared with you before. You may have been in recruitment for 2 minutes. You may have been in recruitment for 2,000 aeons. You won't have heard what I'm about to share because it doesn't get thought about enough. What I'm going to share with you isn't a product of my invention. It is through the dedicated understanding of how relationships are formed that I've put together this model. So what I've done is I've watched what people do and modeled it. I haven't invented something for then people to put it into practice. Does that make sense? And what we're looking at is the core thing that is at the centre, allegedly, of every recruitment business and every relationship between a recruiter and their client or a recruiter and their candidates, which is this thing called relationships. And we see a lot on social media and LinkedIn, how recruitment is never going to be fully replaced by AI or automations or robots because it's all about relationships. And everyone talks about relationships, as if everybody knows what a relationship is. And people are told when they get into recruitment, now, Jeremy, this is all about relationships. So it's really important that you go out there and you build really strong relationships with your clients and you build really strong relationships with your candidates, because it'll be the quality of your relationships that helps you to be able to inspire them to pay you your full fee or to give you exclusive business or to believe that you are worthy of becoming their talent partner, because relationships build partnerships. And it ends up being a lot of sensible talk, but totally packaged in fluff. So things for the record, people. Yes, I 100% believe recruitment is about relationships. Yes, I believe the better relationship that you have, the more likely it is you establish a partnership. However, what doesn't get given, what doesn't get shared, is any form of roadmap. A roadmap as to how to build a relationship or what it should revolve around. How to be able to inspire the other person to start to see you as being a trusted ally. And in that moment, the word reveals itself. It's all about trust. Relationships sometimes get misinterpreted in sales as being about friendships, about likability, about being friendly. This bobbins that get shared that people buy from people that they like. No, they don't. And this bobbins that people buy from people, as if there is something to do with the connectivity between the person and the person that revolves around common ground, around being nice, being friendly, being likable. That isn't what creates it. Further into my life, I might share this list, but I have a list of people who I know aren't likable people. They are very successful in business and they're very good at selling their product and their services, and people will openly say, not a very likable person. But what they are is somebody who has developed a position, a reputation, a brand that revolves around being seen as a trusted person. Trust is the thing, people. Now, I'm not suggesting we go out there and we behave like dicks, and just because we've got a good product, it gives us permission to be a dick. There's something in that, though, you know. What I also believe is finding common ground, building rapport, being sincere, being a good human being. That opens doors. That is the beginning part of connectivity. However, it doesn't win business. And you get caught in the friend zone. I know people who struggle to win business and they scratch their head because they're in all of the networking groups. Everybody knows who they are. People will happily break bread, have beer, do curry with them. They just don't seem to be winning the business that they would like to see being won and they can't quite work it out because no one's forgotten them, and there is definitely this relationship that they seem to be building with other humans. Unfortunately, the relationship doesn't have the connectivity to the thing that matters the most, which comes back to trust. And more importantly, trust that is contextual. So there are recruiters on LinkedIn who I would trust to look after my dog. I would give them Oscar and say, here's Oscar, look after him. And I believe that they would, because they regularly show me on LinkedIn how good they are with their own dog, and their dog looks happy. Their dog's got a nice glossy coat. Their dog looks as though it gets out on regular walks because I see those pictures. Their dog seems to have a nice diet because I see those pictures. I know the person's a recruiter. I'm not sure what makes them any different or better or more suitable or what kind of recruitment they do. But I do recognise their face and I associate it with dogs. And because I associate it with dogs, I am establishing a level of respect, a level of understanding, a level of trust that revolves around, if I had a doggy type of question, I would go to that person. If I had a recruitment type of question, I might go somewhere else. If I had another type of question, I may go somewhere different. So you need to think about, what do I wish to inspire people to trust me on? With what? An entry level has got to be your ability to recruit, right? However, that is such a small problem in businesses today. Finding candidates ain't a challenge. Finding recruiters who claim to be able to find candidates ain't a challenge. Finding recruiters who actually get the big problem. That's the thing, right? That's the domain expertise where you would want to be trusted. And it's your ability to be able to showcase your domain expertise and then how you translate that into what you would consider to be the most common problems facing the senior leaders, the decision makers, the hiring managers in your space, that ultimately has a ripple effect into how they go about scoping out a hiring project, how they set the stall out to be able to ensure that they are seeking the right person with the right skill set, and at a deeper level, how do they find someone who can deliver the mission? Because they've got a world of problems that need to be fixed, and the solution to fixing many of their problems is having the right people in place. That domain expertise, that means that you are building trust with a finite audience who should see you as being exactly that, a domain expert. And yes, it's lovely to say, here's my dog. Yeah, it's great to say, hey, my kids just learned to ride their bike. And it's great to be able to showcase what you had for dinner last night and how good you are at cooking a steak. Those create the insight to you as a human. They don't become the gateway to business. And if you start chasing the dopamine of every time I share a picture of my steak, I get likes, but I don't get likes when I talk about my domain expertise that revolves around the challenges in building a data center in a place that is cheap enough to be able to get the energy supply to it, whilst at the same time remote enough that we can expand and grow it, and then the knock-on effect to actually being able to ensure that its security and its integrity is strong enough that we can actually long-term see it as being a place for us to house the servers and the blades that are required to power the AI slop that these recruiters are making when they do their little cartoon selfies. Because clearly we need another bank of servers just to store that kind of shit. Sorry, micro rant. So as you define what do I wish to become famous for? It sounds shallow at first, but decide. For what do I wish to become the most reputable and famous person in my market? Is it my steak cooking skills? Is it my dog walking capabilities? Is it my parenting inaccuracies? Or is it some form of domain expertise? And now think about, how do I build that as being my professional brand? And yes, LinkedIn is part of it. It's not having a LinkedIn strategy. You have a business development strategy, and LinkedIn is a component in it. So as you think about your entire business development strategy, and the purpose of your business development strategy is to become the most reputable, the most known, the most trusted individual within your domain expertise, we can now set a plan as to how do we build trust in that area. And this is the thing that doesn't get shared enough in recruitment, for rookies, for the semi-experienced, for the ones who are struggling, and even for the most capable. It just becomes this throwaway comment. It's all about relationships. Go build good relationships with people. When really it's about trust and context for trust. And I've put together the 5 stages of trust building, the 5 echelons, the 5 levels of trust. So as you start to look at those people who are in your pipeline, the prospects that you're nurturing relationships with, the ones where you're stuck in the friend zone, right? You know the ones I'm talking about, where you feel as though you keep putting out with the communication, you're keeping them up to date with things, yet nothing seems to be coming back. You're caught in a friend zone, right? Start to look at your pipeline, start to look at your existing customers, start to look at the people that you would like to see more profitable work coming from, and think about which of these 5 levels do I feel I'm at with this person. Because there's an opportunity to ascend. And what sits inside your people engine is I've put together the 10 components that help us to be able to navigate these 5 levels. So if you like the sound of these 5 levels and you want to see those 10 components, the 10 weapons of building trust, get yourself into your people engine, because it's the only place that you're going to be able to discover it. So level by level, right? Level 1, entry-level trust. It's kind of obvious why I've said that, right? But this is where you can get access to somebody without necessarily having influence. They are willing to spend time with you on the phone. They might be willing to take your call. They might be willing to trade stuff about weather, the dog, the steak, the football team. But there's no influence. They've not yet let you into that zone where they allow you to influence them on key decisions. They might let you influence them on a decision about which bed and breakfast should I go to in Cumbria. They might let you in to influence a decision that revolves around best dog walks in Canterbury. They might let you into a decision which is, how do I cook a steak? Hot pan, or do I go from cold? But you may not have yet established the level of trust that's required to help them to be able to influence key decisions that their actual job security might revolve around. But you have entry trust. And it's at this entry trust point that we see people feel like they're getting in with a client. We found the common ground. It's Luton Town. We found the common ground. We're both vegan. We found the common ground. We both hate Adele, or whatever. And as we go on the journey of then making contact, we might reconfirm and reiterate and go over the connectivity. If we're not doing something to move the needle in the trust, we miss the opportunity to rise to the next level, which is called functional trust. This is where you're given execution permission. And you may have had 3 or 4 interactions at entry-level trust to have done the work to allow yourself to enter that next zone, functional trust. And in functional trust, you get execution permission, like, here's a job, but I'm not going to trust you any further, right? So I'll let you play with it, and we'll see what you come back with. I might set some rules. Hey, look, you can have a look at this, but you need to know we only work with agencies at 15%. You need to know that we need CVs by Friday. You need to know that there are other agencies on the case. Like, there may be more conditions associated with giving you access to the work, that it is execution permission, not influence permission, not leadership permission. And again, there are plenty of consultants out there today who are dealing with a client on the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th job where they're still caught in functional trust. You are one of many that I give this to. You are on a list of people that when vendor A struggles, we go to. And there are people who I meet who say, look, I've been supplying this company for the last 3 years. We've always been one of 3. How's your relationship with the client? Oh, yeah, great. You know, we go out for beers. We talk a lot. We catch up a lot. What level of trust do you have? What do they trust you with? And what have you tested as the next level of trust? And getting caught in that functional trust place, it doesn't feel as bad as being in entry trust. That's friend zone. Functional trust, It starts to feel like it is, well, it must be the business. It's the organisation and its bureaucracy and its rules. So we start to remove the fact that it's about relationship. The relationship is great. The relationship's a 10. Right, well, I've got a 10, but they give work to other agencies, they don't take on board my advice, and it still ends up being first past the post with CVs. Dude, you're at level 2, functional trust. Because level 3, we've got a diagnostics trust. And this is where they invite you to get a deeper level of understanding about the true decisions that are taking place, and they value your judgment. A diagnostics trust, they're more likely to seek your counsel on process, on content, on ideology, on salaries, on methodologies. That they are giving you the additional access because there is now trust that you are starting to become a subject matter expert in something that they recognise they may not have arrived at the same level of expertise. They believe that you get it. You get what it's like to be them in their job. You get that there is something bigger at play than simply filling a vacancy. You understand what the real problem is. You see beyond the surface. You understand the consequences of getting it wrong. Not the consequence of hiring the wrong person and we have to do it again, but the consequence that is the ripple effect to that professional's own reputation, to the rest of the team, to the project, to the company, to the mission. And they see that your judgment is grounded in evidence. There are plenty of people who get stuck at level 2 in functional trust because they can't show the evidence for their opinion. They simply say, you're not paying enough money, I can't find anyone. And you sound like a bleating lamb. Whereas if you had true credibility, your judgment is grounded in evidence because you're able to say, here is a Gaussian distribution curve of the salary expectations of 120 individuals that are all suitable by proximity to your factory and by capability in terms of skill. Unfortunately, you have priced yourself out of being able to access 72% of them. A little bit of data can help. But it is the emotional attachment to the outcome of not acting on the data that they respond to, not the data itself. And that is your diagnostic skills. That is your bedside manner. That is how you present and package things. And when you get to diagnostic levels of trust, this is where you're securing exclusivity on a regular. This is where you are winning retained business on the regular. This is where you are working on contract roles well in advance of the being farmed out to other agencies. This is where you are working with your temp clients on a proactive basis to help them to become more agile, more productive, to help them to be able to improve systems and process, not simply get 10 people on site for 6 a.m. tomorrow. Diagnostic trust people is a good place to be. But we're still at level 3. And again, there are those who get to level 3 and they feel that that's it, right? I now have a relationship that is stronger than blood between me and my client. And they miss the ascension to level 4, because level 4 people, this is inner circle trust. This is where you are not just there to be able to show judgment and to be able to share evidence to help to be able to make recommendations and suggestions. This is where full-on influence takes place. You frame decisions. You set directions. You don't ask permission to actually help them to be able to think better because they invite it. It is inclusive. They include you in the decision process. We're thinking about doing this. We're looking at structuring things like that. We've got a project which is coming up and we're starting to go through the plan. I wanted to see what your thoughts were in terms of form, function, process, scoping, and how we actually deliver it. These are important things, right? This inner circle trust. We're in a zone where you're willing to say things that others won't. You're willing to challenge those decisions. Candor. Candor is part of that inner circle of trust, and they appreciate your candor. They want to be challenged. Yeah? Low-level relationships, people want their questions answered. Higher-level relationships like diagnostic trust, they want their answers questioned. Do you feel the difference? Low-level relationships, answer my questions for me. Higher level relationship in terms of trust, question my answers, test my thinking, make sure that my judgment is good. I respect you, I trust you, I believe you have domain experience that I don't, that I value. It's why you are now in my inner circle. This is the moment where I ask consultants, hey, write down these 10 people that you would consider to be your strongest business relationships. And people can write down the 10 relatively quickly if they've been hanging around in the same market for 2 or more years. And then I say, no, the challenge is, let's go to the 10 and ask them who are their 10 strongest business relationships. Are you in the 10? Oh, I don't like the idea of doing this. Do you want to change your 10? Or do you feel there is work to be done with your 10 to start to do the same thing? Because if you believe they're in your inner circle, but you're not in their inner circle, there's work to be done. There was some work that I did for a tyre manufacturer when I was a recruiter, and the head of HR for Europe contacted me and said, Jeremy, we find ourselves in a dilemma. We're looking at putting a shared service centre in the UK, and we've got it down to 2 locations. Could you give us an analysis as a third-party trusted partner as to the pros and cons of each of the 2 locations, particularly thinking about the long-term capability to be able to maintain staffing levels and to be able to grow the shared service centres to cover all of Europe? Part of that, I've got this big project to do and I'm going to give it to you, and I think that you would do this well because I trust you. Part of that, you know things that I don't know that would help us to be able to make a good decision on this, and part of it is if I go through your recommendations and it starts to make sense and I can see that there is justifiable data and rhyme and reason for what you're suggesting, I also think I'll find myself a partner to help me to be able to build it. So I did the work, I shared the work, I invoiced for the work, they paid for the work, they took my recommendation, I did the work. Inner circle trust, people. And then at level 5, partnership trust. The top echelon. This is where we're headed to, right? This is shared ownership of outcomes. This is mutuality of responsibility. This is where we solve problems together. This is where decisions are totally shared. This is where success and failure are mutual. And because success and failure are mutual, we're talking about something bigger than simply filling vacancies here. We're talking about the long-term progression for ourselves as individuals. We're talking about the spotlight that is on us in terms of other people's perceptions of who we are and the value that we bring. This is where extreme exclusivity, extreme loyalty, long-term value live. This is where we create fans, not just customers. And because of this, there is a sense of safety that is far more valuable than any discounts that could be available somewhere else, any other challengers that are knocking on the door. So when we get to level 5 in terms of partnership, these become our super advocates. These are the ones who are most likely to give us extreme sponsorship with others who may be out of reach through any other source. So my recommendation for you people, take these 5 layers. Take your existing customers. Be honest with yourself. Where are they? And where do I take them to next? And what is the evidence that I have that shows this to be true? Test it. Talk to them. Ask them. What are your perceptions of the work that I do for you? Where do you feel trust is at its strongest? Because if you think you've got a good relationship, one feels you could ask those questions. If you're then like, I don't know that I could ask them those questions, Jeremy, they're a client. Oh, so really, now that we're thinking about testing it, you're probably at like level 2 functional trust. You're trying to convince yourself you're at like level 4 inner circle, but your inability to think of a way to be able to ask those questions without feeling like you're going to be embarrassed or they're going to look at you strangely like, what are you doing? You're just an agency. It might answer the question for you already. But now you can build a plan. These things, people, these pillars, these levels of ascension, these are the things that people need to get better at in this age, in this world of automations and AI and technology, these are the things that will make you invincible, that will make you dangerous to your competitors, that will make you valuable to the future. Because if you're still getting caught up in the transactional natures of being a recruiter, and automation and technology is slowly eating away at what you do, and you're not learning how to be able to build trust, relationships with a roadmap, because you're just buying into it as a heuristic, not really thinking about how to calibrate, how to build, how to measure, how to change, you could find yourself on the receiving end of the gangplank of the transactional recruiter. So do yourself a favour. Look at this as being a journey with every single contact that you would consider to be a contact you would still like to have as a decision maker or as a hiring manager that you work with in 6 or 12 months' time. Because these things, they don't just happen because you keep showing up. They're things that we build with intent. These aren't traits. This is unlocking the permission to go to deeper and deeper levels of judgment and trust and influence with a community of people that you call your clients. And I would hope that if we got them together for the same session to look at, hey, what does it mean to trust an external provider? And we looked at these as being ascensions that they could benchmark, that you'd both find yourselves in agreement as to where we're at. And then think about what would be the benefit of going to the next level. Maybe share this episode with them. See what they think. Alrighty, have fun with this, people. See you on another one soon, right? Because there's always something new and exciting to learn.